All right, we're going to be working on lesson 6.6, systems of inequalities. So in the last lesson, we worked at just how to graph one inequality. And now we're going to work on graphing a system. And remember, system just means more than one. So in this case, we're going to be graphing two inequalities on the same grid. And the purpose is just to figure out where do they overlap. And we're still going to be having the solid and the dotted lines. And we're also still going to be shading. So let's zoom in here on the first problem. All right, and we're going to graph the first one. So keep in mind that y is greater than -1 would be the same thing as y is greater than 0x minus 1. So you're going to start at -1. Now, since there's no equal sign, it is a dotted line. Remember from yesterday, that means it's not part of your solution. And since it says y is greater than, we're going to shade on the upside. We're going up, greater than. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and shade the next one here. And again, x is less than 0. So remember, this is like saying that this guy's the x-intercept. So where does it cross? It's going to cross at 0. And keep in mind that that's going to be a vertical line. So in this case, it's going to go right up and down on the y-axis here. And it's going to be a dotted line as well. And then we talked yesterday, or the other day, about how this guy, you just are following the arrow. There's no like greater shade up, less shade down here. So just follow the arrow. And so it's showing us that we're going to shade this side. Okay, and so once we do this, what we're looking for is where does the red and the blue overlap? And wherever they overlap is our answer. So if we look right here, our red and blue overlap all the way. Now, see how it's going all the way to the lines, okay? But it overlaps right here. So all of the coordinate points in this area and out over in this direction work. So if I'm looking here like this guy, -1, 1 works. This guy works, okay? So these are both good solutions. Here, while we shaded for one, we didn't shade for both. So this guy doesn't work. Same thing down here. We shaded for one of the two inequalities, but we didn't shade both, so this won't work. And then definitely anything in the white won't work because there's not even shading there. All right, so let's go to number 2 here. And we're going to start our first equation. It says that -2x plus 2, so we're going to start at 2, down 2 over 1. Okay, I'm getting a few points there. Again, I'm going to have a dotted line. And it says y is greater. And so yesterday we talked about going off that start point, and greater would mean we go up. And if we go up, we're going to shade everything on that side. So, how about we highlight instead? So everything on this side will get shaded. Okay, so these are all answers all the way up to that line. But remember, nothing on that line will work because it's dotted. All right, so let's go ahead and shade the next one now, or graph the next one now. So y is less than or equal to x plus 1. So I'm starting at plus 1, keeping in mind that my slope is technically 1 over 1. I'm going up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. Now in this case, because I have an equal sign, it's going to be a solid line. Not the best line, but you get the idea. And I'm going to shade, it says y is less than. So again, go from that start point, less than means down, and you're going to shade everything on that side of the blue line. So everything down here on that side of the blue line will get shaded. Okay? And again, we're looking for our final answers are where do we have them overlapping. So in this area right here, this little triangle off to the right, this is where my final answers would be. Okay? All right, when we look at number 3 here, the first one's already ready to roll for us, so that's kind of nice. We're going to start at 1, and again, do a slope of 1, up 1 over 1. And we're going to have a dotted line in this case. And it says y is less than. So less than means shade down. Okay. And now on the blue line here, the second inequality here, well, make it blue, we're going to solve for y. So we're going to start by subtracting that 3x off. So I have 4y is greater than -3x plus 12. And then we're going to divide everything by 4. So y, sign does not flip because I divided by a positive. Just keep in mind that that's still in play. If you multiply or divide by a negative, your inequality symbol has to change directions. So I've got negative 3/4 x plus 3. All right, so we're going to start at 3, down 3 over 4, solid line. Okay, and then it says y is greater than, so greater would go on the upside. So again, we have this little bitty triangle though off to the right. So this guy right here is where our answers are at. Okay. All right, we're actually going to skip down now and look at number 5. Okay, so on number 5, first one, we're going to start up at 3. A slope of 2 is up 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. Okay, solid line. And then since it says y is less than, again, less than would be on the bottom part. All right, so now on this next guy here, just be careful because they did change the order around here a little bit, okay? So it's actually y is greater than or equal to 2x minus 1, so just be cautious of that. So your start position is going to be at -1, and you're going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, okay? So if we're looking at this, we should identify that these lines are parallel, and we know for sure they're parallel, right, because of the slope. If they have the same slope, then they have to be parallel, okay? All right, and so since this says y is greater than or equal, so on this blue line, darn it, didn't do highlight again. Okay, so on this blue line, everything above here is going to be an answer. Okay, so now where do you have overlapping at? In this case, your overlapping is going to be in the middle. What I'm going to caution you to, though, is don't think just because that these two guys are parallel that it automatically overlaps in the middle. Okay, you can have situations, I'll do that real quick. So you can have a situation where you would maybe get 2 lines parallel, right? And we'll make this one dotted. 2 lines parallel, but maybe you have to shade on the outside here, and then you're shading on the bottom here. And in this case, they don't overlap, so that would be a no solution. So just be cautious. Just because they're parallel does not mean that they're going to overlap in the middle right away. You have to do some shading and figure out where they're overlapping, if they overlap anywhere at all. And then, like I said, if you get a situation where there's no overlapping in a problem like this, that would be a no solution. All right, I want you to go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to go ahead and do 4 and 6 on your own and see how you do. And when you're done, go ahead and push play. Okay, let's go ahead and look at problem number 4 here, and let's see how you did on it. So in problem number 4, you should have subtracted the 2 off. So y is greater than or equal to -2x plus 1. So you start at 1, -2, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. You should have had a solid line. And since it says y is greater, you should have shaded on the top side. All right, so now on the second guy here, you need to make sure that you solve for y. And be cautious when you're dividing here. So I'm going to subtract the x over. So when I do that, I'm going to get -y is greater than or equal to -x minus 2. And then I'm going to have to divide everything by -1. Now when I do that, did you flip your sign? Your sign should have flipped. You would get 1x or x plus 2. So now when you graph, you're starting at 2, up 1 over 1. Solid line again here. Draw your arrows. And then since it says y is less than, everything on the bottom side here gets shaded. Okay, so your final answer should be everything right here in this overlapping area. All right, and number 6. All right, so on number 6, on the top one here, we're going to go ahead and start solving for y by subtracting the 5x over. So I have -2y is less than -5x plus 6. And then I'm going to divide everything by -2. So y, inequality sign flips because you're dividing by a negative. 5/2 x minus 3. So I'm going to start down at -3. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 3. Oh, over 2. Up 5 over 2, sorry. And then you're going to draw a dotted line through those 2 points. Okay, So now y is greater. So greater should have been everything up here on the top side. Okay, again, just keep in mind that we're going off that start point. And so where's it greater? Everything greater is up. All right, and then the second guy, this guy is already solved for us. So we're going to start at 1. A slope of negative means down 1, right 1. Okay, and we're going to have a dotted line here. And y is greater. We go up here on the top side. So you have a little bitty v right here at top. That would be your final answer. All right, let's go down to example 2 here. And it says determine whether the ordered pair is a solution for the given system. Okay, so just like in our last lesson, when we had an ordered pair, we would plug in the x and the y. All right, so we would plug in x and y to see if it worked. You're going to do the same thing. It's just now you're going to plug x and y into both equations and make sure it works for both. If it doesn't work for both, it's no good. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this first one here. The y value is 12. Oops. 12 is greater than 2 times 2 plus 4. So is 12 greater than 8? Yes, it is. All right, so then we go to the next one. 12 is less than 3 times 2 plus 7. Well, 12 is less than 13. That also works. So is this a solution? Yes, it is. Okay, so this guy works for both inequalities. All right, go ahead and pause the video. I want you to try B on your own, and let's see what you can come up with. Okay, so you should have taken the x and the y and plugged it in. So you would have 3 times 8 minus 2 times 2 is less than or equal to 17. So we get 24 minus 4. So is 20 less than or equal to 17? And the answer is no. So as soon as you have a no, you're done. This is not a solution for the systems of equations. So if you got a no right away, you're done. If you don't get the no until over here, that's fine. But at some point, once you have a no, it's a no. Okay? All right, and let's go to the next page here real quickly. And example 3, define the variables, write a systems of inequalities in graph. Identify one solution and interpret its meaning. Maria has 150 in gift certificates to use at a record store. She has bought fewer than 20 recordings. Each tape costs $5.95 and each CD is $8.95. How many of each type recording might she have bought? Okay, so the only thing on this, we're going to define variables, but in this case, when they already labeled it for you, you already kind of know what your variables are. So your X, in this case, will be the number of tapes. So X will equal number of tapes, and Y will be number of CDs. Okay? All right. And so just like when we did with systems of equations, we talked about how the money all has to stay together. So money, money, money. That's going to be one guy. One inequality. It says she brought fewer than 20 recordings. So the total number of recordings would be 20. And then what is she buying? She's buying tapes and CDs. So we would say, so we would say X plus Y is less than 20. If she buys fewer than 20, she can't actually equal 20. All right, and now put your money on there. So tapes were $5.95, CDs are $8.95. So it's going to be $5.95X plus $8.95Y. And our total is $150 in gift certificates. So we won't be able to go over 150, right? 150 would be my biggest number, but I could equal it, okay? All right, and just like we talked about in the last lesson here, if I'm graphing these, I'm probably going to go off for intercepts, especially with this $5.95, $8.95 business. I'm not going to try to solve for Y and get all that nastiness. So I'm just going to go ahead and do intercepts. So on my first guy here, X plus Y and 20. So my X-intercept is 20, and my Y-intercept is 20 for this first guy. Okay, and just keep in mind you're technically doing the cover-up method. So same thing for X. So I'm going to cover up that 895Y, and I'm going to have 595X is less than or equal to 150. I'm going to divide by that 595. So I'm going to take 150 divided by 595, and my x-intercept is right around 25.2-ish. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for my y-intercept. I'm going to take 150, and I'm going to divide it by that 895, and get 16.8-ish. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here, and my first line is x-intercept is 20, my y-intercept is 20, and that's going to be a dotted line since it said fewer, dotted line, okay? And since it says y is less than, would go down here on the bottom. Okay? All right, now I'm going to do the next guy here. So my x-intercept is at 25.2. Oops. So 25.2, you know, it's like almost just sitting right on that 25. And then my y-intercept, which was at about 16.8, so just a little above that 15. Okay, now this is going to be a solid line. And again, since it's less than or equal, we're going to shade everything down here. Okay. All right, so again, my areas where they overlap. So like right here, just be careful, okay? You can't include this area and you can't include this area. So right here is where your answers would be. All right, and it says, how much of each recording might she have bought? So then what you're doing is just coming up with an answer that you think might work. So for instance, 5.5 would be a good answer, okay? Right here, this would be 10.5. That would work. You could even say right here, 15.5. But one of the things you need to be really cautious of, because let's think about this for a second, 15.5, right, would be equal to 20. 15 plus 5 is 20, and it says we bought fewer than 20. So be very cautious when you think you're calling an answer, and I would stay away from those lines right there, because what's happened is I hand sketched it, and my line didn't go exactly through this point like it should have, and this is actually not an answer. So when you're calling answers, I tell you guys to kind of stay in the safe zone. Don't flirt with this line up here. That way you don't have to worry about it. It looks like an answer, but it's not actually an answer, okay? So I would kind of stick with one of these two. So now if I'm thinking about 10, 10.5, right? So coordinate point, I'm going to use that one. 10.5, it means she bought 10 tapes and 5 CDs and stayed in budget. Okay? All right, and that concludes today's notes for Lesson 6.6.